Welcome back to Just Scribble. Today we are going to talk about the Cosmo Air Light paper from Yamamoto. So this paper kind of hit the fountain pen world in 2019 at the San Francisco Pen Show, and it has been the it paper to talk about and to compare to Tomoe River paper ever since. And I wanted to do a video with you guys and share the paper with you guys, talk to you a little bit about its characteristics, do some comparisons of it to Tomoe River paper, and also do a giveaway at the end of this video. So I do have the Cosmo Air Light paper from 3 different companies. I have this one that I acquired from the stationery selection. It is an A5 notebook that is made by Yamamoto, a plain Cosmo Air Light notebook, and it does lay flat when opened. So I have the A5 in this notebook with the sort of cardstock cover from the stationery selection, and it comes with a little pencil board from Yamamoto so that you can put it behind the page and you can use it as a guide to draw boxes, write straight lines, and what have you. And then I have a spiral bound version that I got from Ghouls. It is also A5 size, but it has a spiral, and it is also a plain paper. And then lastly, I have 2 from Danica 58 on Etsy. I have a B6 and an A5 size. They come with a little cardstock cover, and the ones I have are also a plain page. Danica actually sells hers in quite a few sizes and also in quite a few styles with different page quantities. So she sells her notebooks in a 384, 320, or 192 page notebook. This is one of her smaller 192 page notebooks, and she does offer it in blank, which is what I got both my notebooks in, but she also offers it in dot grid in a 5mm, grid in a 5mm, or line in a 7mm. She offers it in sizes A6, B6 Slim, B6, Standard, A5, and B5, which is close to a composition size. She offers a variety of sizes, page quantities, and also styles inside, whereas the ones from Ghouls and the stationery selection and a few other retailers are generally just plain. Most of the Cosmo Air notebooks that I've seen around at different retailers are the 75 GSM, which is what the Ghouls and also Danica's are. The one from the stationery selection is 83 GSM. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this paper, but I also wanted to do a little bit of a comparison to Tomoe River paper and show you how a few different pens and fountain pen inks look on the two, so you can kind of get an idea of each. So I'm going to use this Tomoe River pad, and then I'm going to use my spiral bound A5 from Ghouls, and that's what we're going to kind of compare on, because these pages can be torn out just like the pages of my loose leaf paper pad. They do sell loose leaf pages as well of Cosmo Air Light. I just don't have those available. And there are companies that sell traveler's notebooks in these as well, like Paper Penguin. So there are lots of options available. So first we're going to talk a little bit about the paper, just to give you an idea of this paper compared to Tomoe River. So this Tomoe River pad is 52 GSM. So they both are white. The Cosmo Air is obviously thicker, but it also has a different feel. Cosmo Air is smooth, but it does have a little bit more of a drag or a feedback than the Tomoe River paper. It is not a heavy feedback paper like a Moleskine, but it does have a different feel to it when you are writing on it. Some people have said that it's similar to the feel writing on a dry erase board, the sort of drag you have on a dry erase board, and that the paper feels like a velvety dry erase board. I've heard some other people say that this paper, the Cosmo Air Light, is kind of like Tomoe River and Strathmore paper combined. So like if the two of those papers had a baby, it would be the Cosmo Air Light. It is almost glossy, but it is not slick. There is a moderate amount of dry time when using the Cosmo Air Light paper with fountain pen inks, gel pens, things like that, just like there is with Tomoe River paper. And your pens won't write as fine on Cosmo Air Light paper as they would on Tomoe River paper or other paper. The ink spreads out a little bit, but it doesn't bleed. And so your fine nibbed pens will appear more to be a fine medium than they will a fine. So if you use fine nibbed fountain pens, I just want you to be aware of that when you write on this paper, your fine nibs won't look as fine. So the thing that people love the most about this Cosmo Air Light paper, and the reason that they are all about it, comparing it to Tomoe River paper, is because of fountain pen inks. Fountain pen inks really look amazing on Cosmo Air Light paper. The sheen is very, very high. Shading is super, super high. There's no bleed through. There's very little feathering. The color contrast and the vibrancy of the colors are absolutely amazing. It can hold up to watercolor, fountain pens, markers, mild liners, highlighters, brush pens, gel pens, all of those, and it won't bleed through. And like I said, the colors just pop. So I thought we would do a little bit of a comparison, and I would just swatch out some different pens, markers, and fountain pen inks on both of these, and we could see how they look and how they compare, so you could get an idea of how this performs compared to Tomoe River paper. I'm going to put a piece of blotter paper underneath each one, just so that if something does bleed through, it doesn't bleed through to my next page and I don't waste any pages when doing this test. I don't expect there to be any bleed through, but I am going to be using a couple of pens on here that are prone to bleed through even on just normal like HP copy paper and things like that. And so I want to make sure that I don't waste extra pages. So I'm going to put a piece of blotter paper behind each one, and then we're going to test some things out. The blotter paper I'm using is from Yamamoto Paper. It is my absolute favorite blotter paper, so I'll definitely put a link to that down below. And this one is actually A5 size. This one is letter size that I cut down, so it doesn't fit exactly into the little notebook. But the first thing we're actually going to try is a permanent marker. So I'm just going to write Bic Perm. Bic Perm. So if I rub my hand immediately after writing, there's little smearing on either. And then if we flip it over, Cosmo Air Light, that permanent marker did not bleed through at all. I'm actually going to take this off because it'll be easier. With the Tomoe River paper, there is a little bit of bleed through with that, and there is more ghosting, as you can see. The next thing I'm going to do is a mild liner, and I'm just going to swish it across. This is going to take longer to dry, but not too bad. Very little smearing. No bleed through, minimal ghosting. No smearing. And no bleed through, no ghosting. The next thing I'm actually going to use are these double line outline markers. These markers are just a fun find that I picked up on Amazon, but they do bleed through like in your normal printer paper, happy planner paper, stuff like that. And so I thought they would be a fun thing to test. What's fun about these markers is that after you draw, the center becomes metallic and then the color kind of pops around the edges. So if you can see that, they have a metallic center and then the color around the edges. There's a tiny, tiny bit of bleed through where I ended each of my little scribbles, but minimal shadowing, minimal bleed through. On a Tomoe River paper, there is complete bleed through and shadowing. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to test some different fountain pen inks so we can see how the characteristics of those inks show up on this paper. So we are going to use my automatic pen, and we're going to try a couple of different inks that I pulled from my stash just so you guys could check them out. This is a Cult Pens exclusive. It is Diamine Iridescent Robert. It has a ton of sheen and shading in it, and so I thought it would be a really good one to try on these papers and show you guys how they look. You can see even from this swatching that it does puddle up differently on each of them. And it's going to take a little bit to dry, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through and put down all the fountain pen ink, and then we're going to take a look at it after it dries. So we'll do a little bit of a time lapse. For you, it will just take a few seconds after I finish swatching them all out. For me, I'll have to wait a little bit longer. So that was the Robert. And then we're going to do Color versus Girls Just Wanna. This is one of my favorite pink inks. Thought we would test it out. The dry time on both these papers is going to take a little bit of time. tried to pull out inks that had a little bit of different qualities in them, just so that you guys could get an idea of how they worked on these papers. So the next one we're going to do is Robert Oster Campfire. This is actually an Australia exclusive. It is one of my favorite inks ever. It is a funky brown, orange, gold color. And we're gonna test that one out as well. Tomoe River paper sort of absorbs the ink a little bit, and with the Cosmo Air Light, at least in my experience, it kind of sits on top and puddles a little bit, and then once it dries, it makes this beautiful effect. So the next thing we're going to do is Krishna's Hippo Noto Magentum. If you saw one of my recent fountain pen videos, you know that this ink is absolutely gorgeous, and it does have sheen and shimmer, so we're going to test it out. The next one we're going to check out is this Kobe ink. I'm pretty sure this is Cherry Blossom, but I'm not 100% positive, so we'll definitely put that down below what color it is. We're going to try that one here. You can see that Robert is drying and the beautiful green sheen is popping up on both of these papers. And the last one we're going to do is J. Herbin Emerald of Shiver, because I know this is a super popular ink in the fountain pen community. People really love this ink and the beautiful properties that it has on Tomoe River paper, so I wanted to compare that because I think a lot of you might actually have this ink if you are into sheening and shimmering inks. Like Tomoe River paper, you can watercolor on the Cosmo Air Light as well. Maybe in another video, we'll do some watercoloring on it. I plan to use one of my notebooks as a sketchbook, and so maybe we'll watercolor together if that's something that you guys would want to do. But for this video, we're just doing ink swatches to kind of show the characteristics of the paper and how the inks look on them. You can write on the Cosmo Air Light paper with ballpoint pens or gel pens, but there will be a little bit of a dry time to prevent smearing. But if you use blotter paper, it definitely helps with that. So those are our little swatches, and now we are going to let them sit so that they can dry, and then we will pop back. For you, it'll be just a few seconds, for me a little bit longer, and we'll pop back and we will check them out and see how they look. So the inks are not dry yet, but you can kind of start to see some of the shading and the sheen that you're going to get on these papers. I did want to point out that the ink is taking a little bit longer to dry on the Cosmo Air Light paper than it is on the Tomoe River paper, just because of how it sits on the paper and how it kind of puddles up. But because of that, the colors are going to be more vibrant, and the shading and sheening is going to be even more dramatic than it is on the Tomoe River paper. We're going to let it sit and dry for a little bit longer, and then we will check out the finished product on each page, and then we will talk about the giveaway. So the ink is pretty much dry. There's a little wet spot left here on this ink on the Cosmo Air Light paper, but we're going to go ahead and check out the difference between the two. When you write on this paper, you're not going to be putting down as much ink as I'm laying down with the automatic pen. So the dry time isn't going to be as long as it is when you puddle it up like this for swatching and testing. But I did want to do that so that I could show you the color vibrancy difference between the two papers, and also the shading and sheen differences between the two papers. And then I did pull out one of my TWSBIs so I could do a little bit of a writing sample as well. So I'm going to do that first so it can dry while we are talking. But this is a TWSBI Precision in a stub. And this has Apache Sunset ink in it. And so it's a really pretty shading ink. So I thought it would be a good one to show you guys on the paper. So I'm gonna write on with that real quick. And then while that dries, we'll check out these ink samples. So this is the Tomoe River paper. and you can see there is shading and sheening on these inks. You can see the beautiful green sheen on that Robert ink, and then you can also see the shading and sheening on the Hipponoto, and then also the shading, sheening, and glitter on the J. Herbin, and then the shading on these inks. Likewise, on the Cosmo Air, you can see the shading, the sheening, the shimmer, the glitter, but the shading is more dramatic on the Cosmo Air paper. The color is more vibrant. If I put these pinks next to each other, you can see that the color is a little bit more vibrant, and the sheening is a little bit more dramatic. The fountain pen ink really plays off of this paper. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is gorgeous on Tomoe River paper too, but this is just phenomenal how it looks. Obviously this is super, super wet with my automatic pen, and so it won't be quite like this when you use your regular pen to write with. If you're using a stub pen like I've done here, and this is still a little bit wet, but it is almost dry, you can see the shading in there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And if you were to use your fountain pen ink to sketch and to draw, it would be gorgeous as well. Likewise, on the Tomoe River paper, the TWSBI writing is almost dry, but the shading is not as dramatic as it is on the Cosmo Air. So that is my video on the Cosmo Air Light paper and how it performs with different inks and some of the attributes of this paper. I did want to share it with you guys and talk a little bit about the paper and do swatches with you guys so you could see it in action. And then I also wanted to do a giveaway with you. So you saw my notebook from the stationery selection that comes with the little pencil board in it. I have one of these notebooks for you guys. This was donated by Mitz from the stationery selection for this giveaway, and so I am going to be giving this away to one of my subscribers. I'll put all of the details and the rules for the giveaway in the description box down below, but you do have to be subscribed to my channel and then comment down below what characteristic of the Cosmo Air Light paper is the one that intrigues you most and makes you want to win this A5 notebook donated by the stationery selection. Like I said, I will put all of the details and specifics of the giveaway down below, but it is open internationally, and those are the two main things that you need to do in order to enter. Be subscribed and put your comment. That is my video on the Cosmo Air Light paper and my giveaway of this awesome notebook to one of you. If you have any questions that I didn't cover about Cosmo Air Light paper or Tomoe River paper, please don't hesitate to let me know and I will get back with you. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss future videos, and don't forget to just scribble.